all you, Bowen.
All right, thank you and welcome everyone to coming to tonight's meeting of the Detroit Planning Commission. I'm Anthony Moen, I'm the chair, and our first order of business is going to be reviewing the minutes, which have been circulated to all of the commissioners. As long as there are no issues, we'll approve those by resolution. Do we have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes. I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Moving on to our consent agenda. As anyone who's been here before knows, we will vote on all these items collectively as one group. So if there are any items that are on the consent agenda, any of the applications that any of the commissioners would like to discuss separately, I'll give them an opportunity now to raise any issues that they see. And then I'll also give an opportunity to members of the public. If there's anything on the consent agenda, so that's just the first three items, PLPC 2021-71, 75, and 76. The addresses are 1624 Highland Avenue, 443 Fifth Avenue, and 1467 Fifth Avenue. If anybody came to give comment on any of those applications, just let me know now and we can move that item off the consent agenda. Otherwise, we will move those three items to a vote as one, and then we'll move on to the regular agenda. So if you want to speak on one of those items, just let me know now. So which item is it? 443? Okay. Yes, number 75. Okay, so we'll move that one onto the, I guess we put it to new business, right?
Yeah, you can just.
So we're going to move it to new business. So that'll be after the old business part of the agenda. So that will not be voted on with the consent agenda. As far as the other two applications, did anybody come to comment on those? All right, seeing no hands. Oh, and on the Zoom meeting, did anybody who's attending via Zoom log in to comment on either the other two items, 1624 Highland Avenue or 1467 Fifth Avenue? Okay, then we'll move to a vote on the consent agenda, the remaining two items. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the two items on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, going to a vote. Barbara Higbee, Suzanne Spellin, Sarah Wenger,
Yes.
Roddy Yagan,
Yes.
Anthony Moen. I vote yes. The two items on the consent agenda are approved 5-0. Okay. Since we do have members who or the public who came to comment on that one item, I think we'll just put that ahead of the old business and get it out of the way. So we'll take any commissioner comments now on PLPC 2021-75. That's 443 Fifth Avenue. There's an application for change of use extension. So
If I could just make a quick comment on this.
Sure.
The reason that this is in front of the planning commission is really to provide recommendations to the zoning board. This application does not have a site plan, really to review. There is some improvements they made to the frontage, but those have already been made. There's no future site work to take place. So really what it is a review, giving the public a chance to comment on it. And then if there are any recommendations that the planning commission has, you should maybe make a resolution this evening that solidifies those recommendations so they can be passed on to the ZBA for January.
okay, thank you for the clarification. Did any of the other commissioners have any other comments? Or do you just want to get the public comments?
I'd like to do public comment.
Okay, so we'll open this up for public comment then. If you came to speak on this application, please step up to the podium. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And when you begin, please state your name and your address for the record. Yes, come up to the podium.
There's a, for the first person, there's a switch on the bottom of the microphone. Just, you'll know that right on the bottom of the microphone, there's a switch on the backside of the,
It's tricky when it's a cylinder.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
Cylinder is
Okay, how you doing? Jeff Jackson. I'm actually the owner of the building and an establishment on this agenda. Just want to clarify a few things because I just want to understand. We were closed down due to some, I feel like misguided information. So I want to clear that up. Regarding any questions you have for me tonight, we're here to answer those. One of the things I want to kind of actually address is the forcage of being pushed into a special zone to be reclassified as zone. We never agreed to that. We're not a nightclub. We don't operate like so, or a tavern. I have my chef here. He's been a chef for 20 years. I've owned a restaurant on 6th Avenue, 6th Street, Empire Fish. We plan on doing the same concept there. We made this known, in email. We are not a nightclub. We don't run establishments, so I have a full staff, kitchen, bar, etc. As a sports bar, as we were approved, we've done everything we can to keep it that way. There's nothing that was stated on the charter or any code that it can be any type of special event or anything in that nature. And if we would knew so, if that was the case, then we wouldn't have done that. But there's nothing there. I've only done what my counterparts around me has done. There's sports bars in my area that have events. They do private events, they do special events. They're still labeled as a sports bar. They have not been pushed to be anything else. I feel like at this time, my business being pushed and hindered to be pushed as a nightclub, and we're not a nightclub. And I have a gentleman here that helps with code. He's an ex-code officer, and we've provided this information as well. We're not a tavern. We're not a nightclub, and we don't fit the rhetoric of any of that. So I'm trying to understand, and maybe you can help me understand, because I've done everything I was supposed to do. I was denied a CO without reason. I have the documentation here, the original permit. And all it said was to obtain the CO was to have my answer system and hood inspected, right? And I have that, and I've done that. I went down to get my CO and I was denied. So I'm trying to get clarification, understanding, because it feels like, we're getting singled out and penalized for things that we didn't do, and rhetoric that's been stated and slandered that we doesn't represent who we are. So maybe you guys can clarify that for all of us, because the people that was at my events, they're here. They're in the community, law enforcement, they work for the governor, they're here. And we don't understand what was said about certain things, rhetoric of bumping and grinding events and other events that were stated that we're doing, and that's not true. So I want to clear that air before we move forward. And any questions you have for us, please, we're here to answer.
You said you went to get a CO and it was rejected?
Yes, so
Why?
good question. Your guess is as good as mine. I went to get the CO. We was on a schedule actually for a CO. I have my original permit here as well if you want to see it. It states on the permit, to obtain a CO, all you need to do was have your answer system and your hood inspected, right? That was it. They said due to my general contractor's permit, which I pulled, was expired, that I couldn't get a CO. And I explained to him, you work for code, I'm involved with code. That's not true. It's two different things, because a CO is a certificate of occupancy. You're supposed to come and do the inspection, and then based on your findings, then you could deny me the CO. But you have to do an inspection first. They didn't do an inspection. They took me on, I was scheduled for the 18th. They took me off the schedule the 17th, and they said due to that, which I explained to them was wrong. And ever since I said that and opened up my mouth, I'm pushed in front of this planning. And I have to be rezoned. This is something I'm not.
So currently the consent is them being rezoned specifically.
Well, a rezone is it's not exactly what the case is. So the issue is that this property is located in the B2 zone. B2 zones allow for restaurants. They also allow for taverns. We define a tavern, a bar, a nightclub. It's all essentially the same thing. There's no difference, right? It's alcohol is the primary source of the revenue or the model of the establishment. So what happened was some work was done at the facility without a building permit. When the applicant came for his certificate of occupancy, the work having been done without a permit raised the question of, well, how was this approved? And that's when code said, well, let's take a look at the floor plan, and the floor plan has 8 stools at a bar,
Right.
No tables, no seating shown. So we said, well, that's a bar. So, it's allowed, it's an allowed use. in the zone, to be clear. A special use permit is a special use. It's not a use variance. That's not what they're going for. They're going for a special use permit.
Right.
So, it's assumed that they would be approved through that process. They just have to go through that process.
Can I,
So I would suggest that we hear from the public to see if there's any resistance.
right. And can I speak on
And
that? Can I just say one
Of
thing?
course,
please?
of course.
And if there is not, then we can proceed accordingly.
Right. And can I speak on that, please?
Sure.
So the work they're saying was done. Here's the problem with that. It was all cosmetics. I proved that. When you buy a building, everyone that's a homeowner that owns property, you're doing a full inspection, which is electrical, plumbing, etc. Right? I have the proof. Everything was fine. What we've done was cosmetic. And per code, if you look at what a general contractor's permit states, it doesn't state I can't paint, I can't add decor on my business as far as, pictures on the wall, mirrors, hang TVs. You don't need a permit for that. If you look at the building, I have full video from stage to stage I can provide if they ask me of what we've done. We have it. We haven't changed anything constructively. You work for code that states that we need a permit. We haven't done anything. You don't need a permit to change a light bulb. You don't need a permit to paint your ceilings. If that's the case, people who own homes every day will have permits. That's not the case. They never ask me any questions. They just assume. If they say, hey, Mr. Jackson, can we take a look at your building and come in? Absolutely. I've had code there numerous times, at my location. In my building, the plumbing department has been there, but everybody has been in my building. It's on camera. So if there was a problem with anything, why anyone haven't reached out to me directly and asked me a question? No one has done none of that, but they all assume this is what happened instead of coming to the source and saying, hey, what happened? It's communication.
So
I have one other question before we go to public, and that is,
Speak into your
Or they
microphone,
can't hear you.
please.
sorry about that. Just one other question.
even closer.
Can you hear me
You
now?
have to hear yourself.
I can hear myself now.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, my question, well, it's two parts. One is the restaurant / bar, tavern, or nightclub. That's one question. And the other is, doesn't every bar have to serve food?
Right.
So,
Yeah, so the way our code defines, separates a restaurant from a bar is the primary,
Revenue stream.
it's basically, it doesn't say revenue stream, but it's essentially the primary use, right? So yes, bars do have to serve food, but there's a difference between a bar and a restaurant. And even the applicant has referred to this several times as a sports bar.
Right.
So,
Can-
I mean,
I'd like
his
to ask a
application
question.
says bar.
right,
So,
okay. And then what about nightclub though? I mean, we do
not differentiate
it's-
between bars, nightclubs, taverns.
but this is not, nobody, we're not saying it's a nightclub. It's
They're
sports bar.
so again, the applicant applies for the use as they define it.
Okay,
What was submitted to code was, I believe, 2 advertisements for events that looked very similar to advertisements for a bar or nightclub. So that was one of the things that raised the question of what is this? What is the use? Is it a restaurant or is it a bar?
And here's my thing with that is, once again, there was an investigation said it would be done by email. And I've known this, I have law enforcement as friends here, federal agents as well, that were attending my quote unquote events. When you do an investigation, as he stated in his email to me, you have to have both sides of the story.
Wait.
We can't have,
You might be misinterpreting why you were required to be here.
no, I'm just asking a question. I want to clarify.
Right, very simple. A bar is defined as a tavern. A tavern needs a special use permit
Okay,
in the B2.
so I'm asking you a question this. When I came here and got approved for this, if this was the case, why wasn't it done before? Why wasn't this information passed down to me before?
In 2017, the application said restaurant.
No,
That's why it was.
hold on a second. I just want to show you guys something. I have, just want to give you this. And I'm not trying to make a big stink of it, but here, I will pass this around so you can see this. Want to take a look? If you read the middle box, what does it say was approved by planning board?
sports bar.
And that's
I don't know.
you can tell by it looks, it's the original.
So you went from a certificate of occupancy.
Yes.
You were told in order to get that certificate of occupancy, you would have to go to do the special, I want to get the wording right.
Special use permit.
Special use permit.
Mhm.
That's the part you have objection towards?
Yes, because it was never told to me before when he said a restaurant, but it clearly says there, sports bar, which I was originally approved for. That's from Cole. And that was never told to me before. And my problem is that we've been shut down. I have staff, right, who can't feed their families, who's suffering during this time. So it changed 3 times. The original email stated that it was an extension of approval. And then after further investigation, the email says it was now I'm considered as a tavern.
So,
Then, it just changes all the time. I just want clarity.
so the reason they're being asked to do a special use permit now is because the city perceives it as a change of use? Why now versus when they initially had this permit? This work permit?
I couldn't say. I don't recall the application from 2017, although I would have been on the planning commission at the time. I can only say that now, looking at it, we classify it as a nightclub or a tavern.
Okay,
And so it just needs a special use permit, not a use variance.
And-
He doesn't have to make the case for a use variance.
so you're not being rezoned, you're just having a specific permit issued to you.
Yes, just a
But
special use permit.
do I have to still get removed? Do I have to still get approved for that though, is my question.
Approved for the
For a
permit?
special permit, yes.
Yes, it sounds like that's what
Right.
they're saying.
So that's my problem. So what if we don't get approved for the permit? Where do we go from here is my question.
What would the reason to not be approved?
I don't know. He's the
Let's
one,
not- we'll-
I guess what
we'll
is,
turn that bridge when we get
okay,
there.
I'm just asking.
what would your resistance to?
No,
to
you know what it
doing-
is for
to
me
getting-
is when people see in a residential area where when you use the word nightclub, it scares people. When you have older people there who have relationships with a lot of my neighbors, when you use the word nightclub, it scares them. That compared to a sports bar, right? When you think of nightclub, you think of dancing all night, partying, loud music. So what do you think, how the public is going to perceive that is my fear, because that's my problem.
And where does it say nightclub now?
Doesn't say nightclub. The email said I am a nightclub / tavern
Right,
in
well,
the email I received.
I think what the point that Rodney was making is that what city staff is saying is that the special use permit doesn't require you to use the words nightclub. You can describe yourself as a sports bar. It would still require you to get the special use permit from the zoning board, but you can present in your application that it's a sports bar, and that's fine. You can get that approval from the zoning board.
So does the permit list what type of establishment it is? I haven't seen the physical permit printed. Is there any opposition to showing it as a sports bar as their original work permit showed? Just with verbiage?
Even if it was a sports bar,
Mhm.
it
Require
requires
the
the special use permit.
Right.
Yeah, no one's
His
dis-
application says we're applying. to
His
be a sports-
application can say anything it wants. We're classifying, we only list certain uses. It's a tavern. That's the use. So
Okay,
you can call it a bar, you can call it a night, it's a tavern as far as we're concerned. That's what we're.
Okay.
And also, anytime code enforcement makes a determination like that, that determination can be challenged. You'd go to the ZBA to challenge that.
Are you
The
agreeable?
applicant has the option of going to the ZBA and getting the special use permit, or going to the ZBA to challenge the decision that he needs a special use permit.
Right,
If it's
because
found that he still needs it, then he's got to go back to get the special use permit anyway. So, we're trying to make this one visit to the ZBA.
no, I understand
get
that,
the
but
special use.
this is I'm trying to understand this because per the email, it wasn't Cole who made a determinant factor, right? It was saying the planning board made a determinant factor. Is what the email says, right? So now that's what I'm saying. Thank you, ma'am. It changes every 5 minutes. So I just want clarity on how things are done. So we
Okay.
know what to do.
Okay, let me be very, very clear for you. The city has classified your use as a tavern. In the B2 zone, a tavern requires a special use permit. Special use permits are given by the zoning board of appeals. So you have 2 options. If you disagree with the city's classification of your use as a tavern, you can appeal that decision to the zoning board of appeals. Or if you're willing to accept the classification as a tavern, you can then go to the zoning board of appeals to obtain a special use permit to operate as a tavern.
okay.
That's fine.
Thank you.
And the only, why you're here before this board this evening
That's my question.
is for this board to make recommendations to the zoning board of appeals on your special use permit application.
I fully understand that. Like I said before, I'm gonna say it again. It's clarity. It's changed 4 different times. You know what I mean? Like, we want to know clear what direction to go, right?
I can't speak to 2017.
No, I'm talking
right?
about recently,
Right.
right? Recently in the emails, there's been 2 different things. There's been extension of approval was one email, and then it was tavern. Then the next email is nightclub slash tavern. So when things change, we would just want to know what is what and what direction we go. We have the right to, right?
Absolutely. And I think the confusion might be, so extension of approval, I believe, is referring to the fact that in 2017, you came to this board to say we're going to change the use of the space to a bar restaurant, and that was approved. But I think it was approved on the understanding that that would be the use as a restaurant, right? Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
that's correct. It was that it would be a restaurant. Again,
Right.
when, you know, when you say sports bar, you think of, I'm trying to get the chain now, like a Junior's or something like that, right? Like that type of, where it's a restaurant. They serve alcohol, but it's a restaurant.
So at this point, we just need to create some recommendations, if any,
Yeah.
for this and hear the public.
Yeah. If we, yeah, so I think at this point, we can see if anybody from the public is
Sure.
here to speak on the application. And like I said, basically our function here is to make recommendations to the CBA, which could mean that it could influence their decision. They're not bound to listen to us, but at least if we make recommendations, they might take them into account. Did you have anything?
No,
you wanted
no,
to say?
no,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Are there any members of the public who wanted to comment on the application?
Should I have to state my name, right?
Yes, name and address for the record. Thank you.
Ron Williams, PO Box 56, Latham, New York. I guess I'm still trying to kind of understand it too, because when you say a sports bar, I think of like the recovery room, which is a restaurant. So I was at the establishment for the grand opening. And it was just really an environment of people kind of getting together just to be able to talk, have a couple of drinks, get some food, whatever. So what's made it different now with a sports bar? Because I think what you just said was that it's no longer a restaurant because it's a sports bar, but we just all nodded that recovery room is a sports bar and a restaurant. And this is the same type of establishment.
The question would essentially be, what is recovery rooms specific classification? And you're getting into a different
No,
question. which
I
is-
mean, I'm just really asking the question because one of the things that I heard, and again, I'm not really privy to all the information, but this bumping and grinding thing that, Mr. Jackson mentioned, gives it a very negative connotation. I spent 25 years on the radio here in this town. I was on Fly 92 and Jams 96.3. So these designations have a real issue, because it has racial implications in a sense. I'm just going to go directly to what it is. I was there for the event. There was no bumping and grinding. I don't know what flyer, because I know somebody said something about flyers were brought up for zone. I don't know what that really means. I've seen flyers for plenty of different places, including the recovery room, that have shown that they were going to have an event, special event. So it's just, I'm speaking on behalf of my personal opinion regarding what I witnessed and what I know about Mr. Jackson, what he's trying to do. So I just felt compelled to just, after hearing this, bring up, like, there are places that do this on a routine basis. And so what makes the designation between a sports bar and a restaurant and a tavern?
I think I can answer that directly. Aaron said it earlier. It was simply when they looked at the application, the drawing that they provided with it showed just 7 seats at a bar instead of tables. That's where the
So
change
had he
came
put
about.
tables, we wouldn't be here.
If you showed that on, it sounds like it's me, that would be a factor in consideration.
Wow. Okay.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, it's a restaurant without.
Well, he's talking about what was presented on the plans. So the way it's
I guess,
laid out,
again,
it
I've never
just
done this
portrayed it that way.
before, but that's not a question that somebody could just make a phone call about. It requires going through these steps, and to me, having hearings, which everyone here would probably rather be home with their families and and doing other things where because it wasn't tables on a drawing. I mean, that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to bring it from a basic perspective of what this really sounds like. It really sounds bad. I have to say that it really sounds bad. And, you know, I think that when people are trying to do business in any of these towns in the capital region, there needs to be a benefit of the doubt as opposed to a charge of guilt based on people's personal perceptions and misperceptions as about what the expectations are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wanted to comment? Yes.
Rich Altieri. I reside in Amsterdam, New York. I work at 836 Loudon Road, Hensel Gracie Latham. I'm not really sure about the zoning and you know, your guys' guidelines, but I'm just here to speak to Mr. Jackson's character. And I've known him for the better part of 20 years and have dealt with him in several different businesses. And, you know, I'm sure that if, you know, he says his paperwork is in order, that his paperwork is in order, and, you know, whatever it would take to, you know, expedite these things should be looked at. And like I said, I'm not really familiar with the ins and outs of the case, but I'm familiar with city government. And I know that some things do get mixed up, and that we should look to expedite as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paulo Barbaro. I'm from the Rotterdam, New York. I've been working with Mr. Jackson as a consultant through this. I figured maybe I might be able to wrap this up a little bit more succinctly. Mr. Jackson is definitely aware that he is pushed into the tavern classification due to the primary, you know, obviously the setup of the interior, and also, you know, the regulations about overall capacity, occupants, so on and so forth. I think the problem that came up was that, as was stated before, kind of the way that ordinances and things like that work, obviously, is, you know, if you're not one thing, you're another. Like was stated, you know, a bar, tavern, nightclub are all kind of the same thing. They're all going to fall into one group. I think the problem came with the fact that nightclub, used in any form, carries a sort of negative connotation. And the fact that that specific term was associated with the bar as opposed to any of the other two equivalent terms based on a flyer or something that was submitted to the department was kind of an unfair jump to a conclusion, even if it's just terminology that's bumped around through, you know, relevant parties and things like that. Just the usage of that alone, particularly in that area, really kind of carries, you know, as was said, a negative sort of feeling that's associated with that. So I think that was kind of where the issue and some of the confusion came from, is that it's not so much that there's opposition to being classified as a bar or tavern. It's just that one extra bit there. People have a very certain set of expectations when they hear the word nightclub and things like that. So if it's an equivalent terminology to bar or tavern or something, it would be better to just refer to it as that rather than go down that road of nightclub at all and kind of put that image into people's heads that, you know, is based on maybe evidence that wasn't completely substantiated with the establishment zone. So I think that was it, but I don't believe he has any other objections to that, but I hope that kind of clarifies anything. If you guys have any more questions too, I did work with him on, you know, the process for getting that in, but I hope that kind of clears that a little.
Thank you.
Good evening. Melissa Jackson. I am owner and wife to Jeff Jackson. I just want to actually kind of tag off that a little bit. We do have some issue with the classification of tavern because the definition of tavern says that the food aspect is an accessory. We don't see it as an accessory. We have a full kitchen. So were tables left off? Yes. Was the site plan and everything sent in quickly because we were caught pretty off guard of having to resubmit everything? Yeah. I mean, my handwriting on the application said that we were open from 6 to 7 because my 2 was horrible and it looked like a 7. So this was a very quick, I mean, we're thinking we're scheduled for a CO on Thursday, but when we're told all of a sudden we have to get all this paperwork in to reapply to come back in here. So we don't see our food as an accessory. We do see ourselves as a bar/restaurant. It is both. The other question I think that I have is that there are other, recovery room was brought up and so on and so forth. And I know it depends on where B2, but it's also my awareness that there are other sports bars in the B2 zone, actually not in B2, I think in an R2. And I'm curious if they've kind of had to go for the special use permit as well, or if it's just us. And then my second follow-up question to that is also what happens then between tonight and the next meeting, the special use permit, which isn't until what, January 5th, I believe? Because now we will have effectively been shut down for 2 months. We have through the entire holiday season with staff who we were expecting to open, the 3rd week in November. Like I said, on the schedule for a CO, canceled last minute. So it's been very confusing. And like I said, every time, and I'm not going to belabor this, but every time when they're like, oh, you got to do this, we're like, okay, great, we're on it. Oh, just kidding. Now you got to do this. Oh, okay. So forgive us if there's some hesitation and some concern about the hoops and then what comes next. So I know I kind of said a lot. I don't know if there's questions or anything I can clarify.
I guess I do have a question. What we've said is that at this point, we're asking you to determine what you want to be and put that in. So am I correct? If it's,
But then again,
I mean,
but if
we've
we
classified
challenge
it
it
as we've classified it as a tavern.
without asking us any questions.
but if it's
It's in the application. It says it's a bar restaurant. So we use the
Right.
tavern as the use, right? Because
And
that-
ignore the
that use
restaurant.
is not allowed in the zone. So if they're going to have the use of a tavern,
Can I,
it requires a special use.
If
permit.
they're saying they are
I
a
mean,
bar
if you look at
restaurant,
their hours of operation
Yeah.
alone, I think
I'm
it's
thinking
hard
From noon to
see how this would
7,
be
but-
classified as something else.
So-
again,
But
if-
again, from noon to 7 on a Sunday with NFL Sunday ticket on the big screen TVs, baskets, wing specials, sandwiches, other daily specials, like I'm
recovery
just
room
confused.
closes at 10 p.m. if you wanted to use that as an example of a sports bar.
Okay, and have you
So-
asked us when our kitchen is going to close? We have not been asked any questions. I do investigations. I'm a psychologist. I do research. I have worked for a hospital. I have done investigations for Joint Commission, for Office of Mental Health. You get the facts, you ask questions. No one has asked us questions. And we've tried to provide information and then we're told, yeah, no, we are deeming this. So we're confused. And here's the other piece that I understood from about the special use. We can disagree with it, say we don't fit that definition, and then that's fine. We go to the January meeting and then you guys say, well, too bad. We still see you as a tavern. Now we have to go back again is what you're telling us. And then we're 3 months out and then what? So we're basically told this is who you are. This is how you're going to operate. And we have to jump through the hoops, which fine. But when does it end? And that's where our concern is.
I don't know if we're going to get anywhere discussing it further tonight.
And like I said, my question then is what happens between now and January? We're essentially closed and shut down.
We do that for you.
Hmm?
You want to file the appeal of the decision and be heard for a special use permit back to back next month. You can do that.
so,
Make that accommodation,
Right.
so you don't waste the extra month.
So if you want to challenge the classification the city made that you're a tavern
Okay.
and argue that you're a restaurant or argue whatever you want to argue, you would make that argument to the zoning board of appeals, which
Okay.
you can do on January 5th.
Okay.
All right. But you may have gotten some information that if that appeal is denied, then you got to come back in February for the special use permit.
Right. That was said a few minutes ago.
What I've suggested, which I think we can accommodate, is if you want to make the appeal, we put it on for the agenda the 5th. If the zoning board hears the appeal and agrees with you, fine, you're on your way. If the zoning board hears your appeal and denies you, then you also have the special use permit application, so you get heard on that on the 5th. So either way, whichever way you want to go, both ways would be in front of the ZBA on the 5th, so you wouldn't have to come back another time.
But I would recommend that if you're gonna suggest you're a restaurant and your kitchen closes before the facility closes, that you wordsmith those hours a little bit better if you're gonna try to present that you're a restaurant.
Okay.
Is it also an option to the applicant to request a special meeting? If you're saying that that January 5th would be 2 months and that's a long time,
It's only 3 weeks.
I'm just wondering.
Because there's no
Yeah.
reason to come back.
I'm trying to explore all the options available to it.
I appreciate that.
And just one other comment from the point of view, this is B2, but it is also kind of a neighborhood. So a bar restaurant is better than a tavern, in my opinion. Just if it isn't truly a food and drink establishment, and establishment, a bar restaurant has better.
It's an allowed use. The use is allowed in that zone.
The difference
So
between
they
the
wouldn't
two,
even need it?
Huh?
So they would be all set if they were,
Again, a tavern use is allowed.
Mhm.
It just needs a special use permit, which is
Okay.
not a use variance.
Yeah.
But
It is very,
So that
it
there
is,
aren't 15 on the block.
But the
It is
problem is
assumed
the
it would be
applicant doesn't want to
granted.
be called.
unless for some reason the applicant does not want to agree to the stipulations that the zoning board
Okay.
wants to impose.
Yeah, I
Which
didn't-
will likely be hours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can
Okay.
cut to the chase. That's what it's gonna be about,
Yeah.
right?
But again, and that's helpful because again, it's the information. We're looking for information. We're looking for clarification because every time we think we've got it and we think we know what we're supposed to do and we do it, then something changes. And that's very frustrating. So we're just want to make sure that we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and that we're able to move forward.
So do we as a board have anything to do here?
You can recommend
I have,
hours or
I have-
lighting or
Yes.
cameras, or you can recommend whatever you would normally recommend for a use that doesn't quite fit the neighborhood, but is allowed, right? The same way you guys do for convenience stores or bars in other areas or what have you.
So-
The only difference is your determination this evening is not final. These are just recommendations to the ZBA.
or you could make none. You could pass it along to the ZBA.
We could move on to the next
do
item.
you, do you-
we'd like to move on.
so
Could we do a quick recommendation or
Yeah,
something?
I do have some,
So we give a
Oh,
favorable.
I don't know if you received all of them.
Right, yes. Sorry, were you finished? So we can see if anybody else wanted to
Nope,
comment?
I'm good as long as you don't have any other questions for me.
No,
Thank you
I
for
think
your
we're good. Was there anybody else from the public who wanted to comment? Okay, seeing no hand.
Yeah.
All
this
right,
this gentleman.
oh, sorry.
Hello, my name is Bruno Tosses. I own a business in Layton, Colony. I know Mr. Jackson well, and once I've been introduced by this project, and he mentioned a lot about the community, bring the business into the community, and be able to engage with the families around, and be able to be a positive influence in here. And today I came over in front of you guys, like just to say that, because that's what we trying to bring, like incorporate work in the community with families, and I believe that's where the intent of create this environment is for it. So if in any case, like this can help, I'm here just to step back, like because I work with kids, and that's where we're gonna try to use the space to confraternization, bring your families together, and make the environment, like positive area in Troy. I'm first moving for the United States in Troy. I lived in Troy for a long time. In 20 years ago, Troy was not the same as it used to be. So the Troy is coming ahead, it become a nice city. And when people are trying to bring business here, I believe, like I came out of my way to express my feelings about what he's doing and how hard he worked and what the benefit is going to be for the town. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's Ryan Huno. I just have a couple clarifications too. I know Mr. Jackson for a long time. I've been a chef in the area for 25 years. And he reached out to me because it sounds to me that you're making the food more of a secondary than the alcohol. And I just want to clarify that there's been a lot of effort that's gone into this menu and the equipment and the kitchen. And if it's coming down to the hours of operation, then I'm sure that's something that could be worked out as far as how the classification goes, but there's full entrees, there's sandwiches, there's soups, there's a staff, there's, multiple things that have been done in that facility that are not secondary to the bar. So I just need to, I don't know if you guys know that, if you guys have looked at that, I know the tables are subject there, but I've done a lot of menu design around non-tabled food, cocktail style seating, different types of things that don't necessarily, how many times you go to the court downstairs, you're not sitting down when you eat. There's tacos, you're eating with your hands. It's not always a sit down thing to make the food a secondary thing. There's been a lot of work that's been put into that menu in that kitchen. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay,
Does it-
if there are no more members of the public who want to comment, I think we'll move on to some recommendations.
So my first recommendation would be grease trap, if you don't already have one, for outside the building so that you're not going to end up with plumbing problems, just installing a commercial grease trap. I'm not sure what size water service you have, or if you have an Ansel system. Okay, so you're already plumbed and already there. Awesome. So
There is, yes, there's no issues.
I was just
As far
thinking
as
of
I'm aware. with
site
the
plan
site,
recommendations.
Right, the accommodations, they've been made.
So nothing else from me.
I'd simply recommend that the hours for Friday and Saturday be clarified as Melissa Jackson described. I think there's a typographical error on the application. And so if you look carefully at what those appropriate hours should be.
The staff report lists the current and confirmed hours.
Yeah, just to be clear, the hours they wish to close on Friday and Saturday is 2
Right in
a.m.
front of me. Okay,
Yep. And they're opening at 6 p.m. on those 2 days.
yes.
As most bars and restaurants in the area do.
Yeah, okay. Anything else there?
So if you're comfortable with 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday for food and drink, then so am I. I'm done. I have no other recommendations.
So I guess,
No, I was just going to recommend that we, as the planning board, make a positive recommendation to the zoning board of appeals.
I would agree, and
what Andy said. That they have both options.
right.
Agreed.
Positive recommendation, whether for a special permit or under their original application
Right.
as a restaurant use. If
You would make a recommendation on the code interpretation if they pursue that. Your positive recommendation is grant them a special use permit.
right.
Right.
I second.
All right,
A real motion.
moving to a vote. Barbara Avery,
Yes.
Not clear. What is the motion?
it's just a recommendation. to the zoning board.
Okay.
A favorable recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recommendation in favor of approval of the special use permit.
Okay.
So it sounds like it's a recommendation with no conditions.
Just,
Correct.
it was just clarifying the food and drink at the hours. The food and
Yes.
drink both clarified for the hours.
Right, so that it'd be clear from the hours whether or not the kitchen is operational during all those hours that are listed on the application.
Sorry, we're in a
I
vote.
vote yes.
Barbara Higley,
Yes.
Suzanne
Yes.
Spellin, Marty Yeagan,
Yes.
Anthony Moe, and I vote yes. So the motion is approved 5-0. Okay, moving on to old business. First application is Taylor Apartments, Building 1. And I'm confused from this one, so I'm gonna step out.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Dash, if you could pull up the slideshow. Absolutely. And as always, I bring copies of the slideshow for the board members.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh, I missed this meeting. I forgot.
I think since the chair has to step down, I think we have the classified chair for this, correct?
Sarah, you're gonna chair?
I, Sarah Wingert, will assume the role of chair in our chair's absence. So, Mr. Keating,
Yes.
would you introduce this project PLPC 2020-0073, please?
Thank you very much. This is Roger Keating from the Chazen Companies here tonight on behalf of Penrose and the Troy Housing Authority to provide the update to the Taylor Apartments project. Last month, we were before the board. The board was able to act on the seeker at the last meeting. And from there, we went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, where we received our parking variance for the project. And at the last meeting, there was no action on the site plan. There was a few items that came up, primarily focused around the east or the rear elevation of the building. We've provided some updates to that as part of this presentation this evening. And in addition to that, when we were before the board last time, we spoke about that we were going to be doing some community outreach. That community outreach took place last week. So the presentation that you'll see here regarding the elevations and the revisions are the result of the comments we received here by both the public and the board from last month, as well as items we received from the community outreach. So with me virtually is Rem from Datner Architects. And I was hoping that Dash, you'd be able to pipe him in if you can find him in our attendees, and then he could help us walk through some of the slides. So if you can you present both at the same time, Dash?
Should work. All right, go ahead and share your presentation, Rem.
Actually, can you guys present it on your end, or do I have to present it on my end?
I'd be happy to present it here. We'll lose you on the screen, but that's all right. We'll still hear you. So just let me know when to switch slides.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
All
I
right.
was pulling that up. Just wanted to say thank you again for having us. And sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, but hopefully you can all hear me and hear me clearly. So as Roger said, we did have a meeting last week with both the tenants of the existing Taylor Houses buildings, as well as some other members of the community and Representative Russell Sage. And we got some feedback, particularly on the rear elevation, which was something that was of concern that was commented on both at the last planning board meeting as well as last week. So here you're just seeing the west facade, which is the main front elevation of the building, which I'll go into in a little bit detail. If you could skip to the next slide. This was a shot from that meeting. I think that's actually me in the background at the screen. You could skip to the next one. So here, and I'm not going to go into too much detail again, because I think we've already presented to you all a bit of the concept of the building. But this elevation or this view really shows the building from the north end. So if you're at Congress Street looking south, and it shows both the concept of the building in terms of the envelope, the scale of the building, and then the scale of the streetscape along River Street. So looking south, the building there is on the left. And this really shows not only that the width of the street and the pedestrian space is quite generous. And secondarily, it's showing in the blue dashed line, you can see the existing Taylor houses buildings that are going to be demolished, which are basically the same scale. I think they're actually slightly taller than the building proposed, but we're also proposing to pull the building back from River Street, creating a wider space and a landscaped area along the property, going south along River Street. If you could jump to the next slide. Here we're showing, for comparison, some of the other historical buildings, both from late 19th century and early 20th century, along River Street, both north and south of the project. So at the top left is the proposed building, and at the bottom you can see in a smaller scale some of the existing buildings. And the dashed lines on the top show the relative heights of those buildings to the proposed. And this is where I'd like to just point out, again, like I think I described in the last meeting, just that the concept of the building really is trying to reference some of those details of those Victorian commercial buildings of the city, which are quite beautiful, both in the distribution of the bays, the pronounced piers, and then in the base, the body, and the capitol, which we're trying to emulate in some sense in this building, but in a more contemporary style, I guess. If you could jump to the next slide. And this is the main elevation along River Street. So this is the west side of the building. Again, you can see that articulation of bays of either 2 or 3 windows running the length of the building. The principal materials are red brick, again, to reference some of those historical buildings and because it's a beautiful material. Combined with some window groupings that are broken up by metal panels, spandrels between the windows. So we're employing a red brick with a light and a dark gray metal panel. And then at the setback, which is if you're looking at the top elevation, the right hand of the elevation of the top 2 floors, that's the setback area of the facade, and that would be an ephes material. So if you jump to the next slide, this was the elevation where I think there were a few comments. So some people thought it was a little bit austere or a little bit too repetitive and simple. And so we did some studies to try and liven up this elevation, both because you'll have glancing views of it, whether you're coming down or Congress Street, or if you're in the alley parking your car, or potentially even across in the pedestrian walk along Ferry Street. But also for the buildings that are up on First Street and up in Russell Sage, they have views down toward the water and toward this building. So if you go to the next slide. These were the first studies we did, which we presented to the community last week. And the general objective was to try and break up that facade. So we're not changing the materials. We're still studying this as an ephes finish for the most of that facade. Obviously, the red brick on the northern bit will remain. That wraps the volume around to the west side. But yeah, we're trying to break it up into smaller groupings, or make it look, accentuate the verticality in one option, and introduce a different color, as you see in the bottom right option. So these were some options we studied. But then if you go to the next slide, this is where we've landed as something we think really brings that elevation down to a scale that's a little bit more human. So we're emulating that breaking up of the bays that we did on the west facade. So the groupings of 2 or 3 windows that it's done in the brick, we're doing here again in the ephes, which helps break down the scale. And then you also have the hint of the verticality breakup with the 2 top floors stepping up and down by a floor, the tonal finish of the ephes. And the way that this would work around the building So the bottom left elevation, you can see how it wraps the south end. That would be along Ferry Street, and then up along River Street on the left-hand side. So we're basically looking at, you know, a three-tone ephes facade that will be broken up into different blocks, essentially, and try and really bring it down. It almost looks like a sort of a townhouse or a row house kind of scale. And the colors, I say this is where we've landed. This is where we are. It's not 100% complete. We're studying it still, but we think that this is a nice composition, and I think maybe the colors need to be studied a little bit, but this is where we are with that. And that's kind of where we are.
Thanks, Rem. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to the board for any questions or comments based upon what you've seen here. We'll be happy to try and answer them, and we can move forward from there. So thank you.
May I ask, the site plan, none of the technical components of the project have been altered since you last presented, and the only difference in this presentation is the exterior of the building?
That is correct.
Okay.
At the last meeting, we went through the site plan with respect to, you know, where the parking was, the lighting, the landscaping, and so on and so forth. That is still all the same. But as we concluded the meeting last, we agreed that we'd do our additional community outreach, and that we'd have some additional meeting or additional look at this facade, and then we'd be back before you.
Dash, would you remind us, has public comment been closed or is it still open?
I believe it is still open.
Okay. And Aaron, may I ask you if there are any components of the technical review that are still underway for this project?
The only part of the technical review that I believe needed to be revisited, and I don't know if it has been, was the sewer capacity. But that is that's simply an administrative action. There's no question there's capacity in the area. It just needs to be reevaluated. That's a function of the additional units.
Okay. So in that case, is there anyone from the public who wishes to make statements or ask questions about this proposal? Okay, thank you. In that event, are there commissioners who have comments or questions to pose to the applicant's team?
I'll start.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for providing options. That's appreciated in your presentation here. I do prefer the new design to the previous one. I think it's a question I asked last meeting, but I don't remember the answer. Why the change in material type from one face of the building to the other? Why not continue with the brick? And I'll let you answer it. I have an idea why, but
Rem, can you?
Rem,
Yes. Yeah. Can you all hear me?
yes.
Yeah, so I think we did discuss it last time, but there really are two reasons. And the main reason I don't think is what you think it is. I think the main reason is actually that the building is not a tiny building. It's a rather large building. And what we were trying to do is break up the massing to help break down the scale of that building. So that change in material, we drew from the setback along River Street, and we carried it around to the east facade of the building in the ephes finish. We think with the right colors and the right scoring and patterning, it makes a nice complement to the brick and metal of the rest of the building. So I think that was actually the design reason why we made the change. It also helps that budget-wise, ephes is a less expensive material than the brick and the metal panel. And because there's a large component of affordable housing, the budget is relatively constrained on the project.
So Rem, I think that answers the question as to why there's two different materials on one face of the building, but why is it that on the east elevation, it doesn't also have two? I get it. If you're looking at one face of the building and it's all brick, it can have a heavy mass to it. But the change from east side to west side is one where the east side it has brick and the ephes, or sorry, the west side has the brick and ephes. The east side is just ephes. So that's more, I guess, the heart of the question I was trying to ask. So if it was about massing, I would expect the same approach to be on the front and the back.
Right. We actually did study it that way, where the brick continued to some portion of the east facade as well. But if you look at it in plan, actually, it's a pretty natural break. It's where it's a kind of a L-shaped building. It's on the inside corner where we make the change of material. I don't know if you can pull it up again, but the northern, 60 feet or so of the building remain the red brick, and then it turns the corner, and at the inside is where we switch materials. At the inside corner.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can see it there, basically where the shadow is toward the north end of the building on the right.
I had one quick question while we're on the facade, the rear facade, and that is there's a whole section to the far right on the preferred one where it does it turn to single windows, or is it still double windows? There's one other building in downtown that has just single windows and it just looks terrible. I'm just wondering, is that really, most of them are double windows and then there's a line of single windows. And then I guess there's is there a reason why those are single windows and can they be double windows? Because the single windows just look like single windows as two double hung.
Yeah, the single window, you mean in the brick area, the one that's sort of in the middle of that brick area?
Yes.
Yeah, it is a narrower window. We could look at dividing it in two, but that's actually a corridor window. So that's really providing views out for the corridor.
Yeah, you gave me the answer. It's a corridor window.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Okay. Thank you.
I'd just like to make an observation that our viewport for the east elevation is really pretty limited because there are buildings along First that are really quite tall. So it's very unlikely that we'd see any of the east facade unless we're in the alley or pretty far away from the building.
You will see the top because remember, when you saw this when we saw it last, it was 5 stories. Now it's 7 stories.
Oh, I understand.
So it does still the top 2, but I think it's fine. I think they've taken care of that on the back. I think it's fine.
Yeah, but I would add to that. I mean, it's a good point. We actually studied that as well because in the alley there are some old garages or coach houses that are about 1.5 stories to 2 stories high. So the lower 2 floors of the building aren't really visible from any other buildings. The upper 4 are somewhat visible from the buildings along First Street. But it's true that the most you'll have a view of this is if you were driving down Congress and you look to your left, or if you're driving in the alley, or potentially if you're in the pedestrian walk along Ferry Street on the southern side of where the tunnel goes down.
Okay, Suzanne, do you have any comments?
This new version is definitely better than the other one. I'm not gonna, try to redesign the building, but I was wondering if it's possible to, even though there's different colors now, it's still kind of monolithic. I wonder if it's possible to add just some even decorative kind of Juliet windows or a slight bump out of 2 feet just to add a little shadow and make the massing a little less monolithic.
Rem, is the brown ephes in the same plane as the adjacent?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, yeah. But that is an interesting idea. I think we can look at that. I'm not sure how well it'll work with the wall assembly, and it doesn't necessarily help the layouts, but we can study it. I certainly agree that adding some shadow and depth to it would really help.
I think Juliet balconies are a great idea. They also afford the opportunity for some plant space for people to put plants out and add green life and vitality to the building.
I mean, not on
Right.
every-
Programmatically, they may not support
Well, Juliet, yeah.
what the housing authority in particular is looking for. I don't know. I'm speculating. But I
Yeah,
think
I get
some
that.
kind of ornamentation and articulation that it would not in any way dramatically change this proposal is worth considering.
Or cost of fortune.
Or cost, right, right. And I would just simply add that this is very detailed, but the facade shows 3 colors and the key shows 2. And I would suggest that perhaps we have one more. And I'm not making this a condition yet. I'm just suggesting the potential of a final material palette
Schedule.
package, not even just, yes, a schedule, but a package. I mean, this is a big building and we'd like to see the materials for sort of final tweaking, final approval, really of colors. But I think conceptually, the facades are where we want them to be in general.
Yeah, for the two-tone palette in the corner that you mentioned, that's a good point. I think actually if you go back a slide or 2 where we show the materials, what's different, the reason we're showing, yeah, here, this was the original 2 tones. So the EFIS type A at the top there is maintained, and then the 2 on the following slide were added. So that's the 3 tones that are included. But yeah, it wasn't clear in the way we put that together.
So they're
and
so dark, Rem, so forgive me, but on option 2, that dark color is no longer part of the proposal.
Correct. The EFIS type B is not part of that, of the new proposal.
Okay.
And when you requested the like a material palette, do you mean in physical samples or digital submission?
Physical samples would be much appreciated.
Okay.
One thing I didn't ask during last meeting would be the entrance on that inside face. What type of material? Is it a concrete sidewalk, just entrance, or what? That part I don't see, and I know that's not really in this presentation, but when on the topic of materials, I was just thinking about it.
You mean the paving of the walk into the?
Well, I know the parking lot is on this east elevation side, and nestled into this, but I would imagine there's going to be one of the entrances is probably tucked in right there. Again, it's hard to see.
Right. It's right in the corner where the shadow is darkest, I guess. There's a door that goes right into the lobby from there. And yes, it's concrete paving.
Can you clarify again? I know I've asked it before and I heard it, but on the top 2 floors, is there actually a setback? I think there is.
There is, not on this facade, but on the main facade along River Street.
And how much setback is that?
It's a 5-foot setback. If you actually go to the cover sheet, the very first slide, you can see the main elevation, and I think it shows that, yeah, on the far right, you can see where it's set back, where it looks like it's a little lower.
Or if you go back to the sheet called rear facade new, the bottom left view, you can see the EFIS system is set back. Looks like maybe a window's width and plus some masonry on either side.
Yeah, it's 5 feet.
Any other comments or questions from our commission?
I guess I would just say one other comment, and that is that I have had communication from Russell Sage College, and they are in favor of the project because the derelict tall buildings have been just so terrible for them. So my support of this project is based on the fact that the closest neighbor is very much in favor of this, and it will make a huge difference to them. Even though there's I don't like 7 stories, but in this instance, to me, it's a special situation.
Okay, in this event, do we have to make a motion to close public comment?
I would recommend it.
Okay. I can ask one more time if anyone from the public would like to speak on this project. It appears not.
Oh, I have one more thing to ask.
Okay.
So under the staff recommendations, it talks about conditional approval and final technical review, final exterior architectural materials. Is this to me, this is a scale of project and scope and the people it's meant to serve that with a magnitude such that maybe it merits us requesting the city bring on a separate reviewer. Do that engineering.
I don't know that anything from a technical perspective has been flagged or raised as an issue to date. And
no, there's
my
no-
understanding is that particularly because the submission was made months ago, there has been adequate time to do a comprehensive review. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would say the staff recommendation, when we say final technical review, it's
You
these
mean
are
your
minor
department?
issues. These are very minor issues.
Okay.
And then as far as the exterior materials, I think amongst yourselves, you need to discuss what it is you'd like to see, and then pick one member of the commission who would review the materials as they come in. Because obviously we can't go in front of the board again for that. So, whoever is most qualified for architectural review should probably be that person.
Thank you. So with that understanding, do we have a motion to close the public portion of this hearing, public comment portion?
I move that we close the public hearing portion of this project.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. We will take a vote. Barb Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Rodney Yagan,
Yes.
and Sarah Wenger, yes. And do we have a motion to grant approval of this application? And if so, with conditions?
Yeah, conditions.
And I would, so I will volunteer that the conditions may be final technical review and submission and approval of final materials and colors.
And that approval would be by a subcommittee of the commission designated by the commission.
Agreed. Do we have such motion?
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
And let's take a vote. Barb Higbee,
Yes.
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin, Roddy Yagan,
Yes.
and Sarah Wenger, yes. Approval is granted for the site plan application pending the conditions of final technical review and final architectural material selections to be approved by a subcommittee of the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, can you call him back in?
Sorry?
Can you?
Anthony. Oh, sure.
Do you guys, while it's fresh in our minds, so it doesn't get lost, do you want to nominate somebody to be that subcommittee?
I nominate Sarah Wingert.
Oh, thank you.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 There you go.
Got a job.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the old business agenda. PLPC 2021-57. This is 3367 6th Avenue. Do we have the applicant present?
Well done.
Hi, good evening.
Who turned it off? Nope.
Sorry.
May as well just offer.
Probably tied. Just yell it out.
I just went to tap his comparative site plan to Mr. Almost car. I did tell him he needed to be here tonight. I've never met him. So we discussed.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
your appearing.
Are we okay to table this?
I would,
We
I would suggest you guys table this indefinitely.
Didn't we talk about this last meeting?
There
Yeah.
was, you guys heard some public comment.
Correct.
We discussed it even with the
And we
applicant.
said,
We wanted the applicant to be here.
right.
Exactly.
And what did we say? What was the decision if the applicant wasn't
We
here?
haven't heard
Just
anything.
table it indefinitely?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Oh,
There are members.
He's not here, he's never gonna show up. I represent, I'm Frank Bader.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really, and I really tell you, I speak for the postal people in North Central area. We are really doing everything we can to change the culture and cultivate, new things in that area. North or Country Street, to 112.
Mr. Mabel, if you wouldn't mind us, nobody on the Zoom can hear you if you don't speak to the mic. Sorry.
With that said,
can you
listen.
give your name again?
I'm Frank Maben, North Central Community Solidarity Group. I'm the director.
Thank you.
Been doing this for 7 years. I've worked vigilantly with Kim Ash, who's been our councilwoman. She's worked with us. We are doing everything we can to cultivate change down in that area. Have you been down there? Okay. There is no way that a smoke shop would do any good in that area for anybody. Absolutely no way. And if there is anybody, somebody tell me. It won't. However, there are several ways. What will cause harm, right? And an area right now that, man, full of chaos, but we are cultivating the change. Listen, in the North Central area, I speak for the people. We don't want no more smoke shops. We don't want no more liquor stores. We don't want no more liquor permits. That's the last thing we need. Smoke shops, liquor stores, and liquor permits. No, we want mentoring pieces. We want after-school program type of things, not smoke shops, liquor stores. No, we have to cultivate the change. You have to become a part of it. We're saying to you, you know what's going on down there. You know that place needs change. One Troy, that's what it's all about. We can't have that. We have Freedom Square right there on that corner. Across the street, we have a church run by this pastor right here, a church.
We're good.
United Ordained. On the next corner, we have a store that we want out of there. This store is constantly constantly doing things that are, and guess what? Yeah, they're getting raided for selling illegal cigarettes, smoke. See? No good. Look it up, it's public record. We're not having it. What I'm saying to you is, right? Embrace the change. Become a part of it. Don't allow another smoke shop. Don't allow another liquor permit. We can't stand it down there. Okay? And if anybody can show me, anybody can show me where it's reasonable, right? I can tell you right now, I'm gonna say these 3 words. You're gonna hear me say these and I'm gonna get from it. But I'm telling you right now that the North Central area, we thought this was like really a joke. We are amazed. We are appalled. We are insulted that someone would want to bring a smoke shop to that area, or that anyone would ever really entertain letting it happen.
It just can't. For all the right reasons. Anybody can tell me how a smoke shop in that area is gonna, please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Maple. And we hear your concerns.
Can-
Just
Yeah.
if I can make one comment before we hear any other public comment. Any applicant can submit any application as long as they pay the fee and they put in the required documents. We have to hear the application. So,
Thank you, sir.
so we can't control what applications come before the commission.
But you can't control now. This shouldn't go on any further. This person's never gonna show up. This is not the first,
Well,
second, or third time for
The,
this.
the proposal here was to table it indefinitely, which means that the applicant would have to come back, renotice it, so the entire neighborhood would know if it's ever going to be on the agenda again.
Okay.
No action will be taken. And
But
you
the
get
other thing,
notice if they
the
ever-
other thing that Anthony's trying to explain is that the use is not something that can be denied. Okay? Smoke shops are allowed in that area. Liquor stores are allowed in that area, assuming the zone goes with. If you want to change that,
Yeah,
the place to change it is the city council.
we're working on it.
Okay. All right. That's where, because this board, their hands are tied when it comes to the use.
Thank you. We're working. City council.
Well, I've spoken with her, so I know you guys are working on
Oh, yeah.
it, but that's the way to handle
We have been, and we've been working with city council for years. We're working on this, and believe me, we're making progress. But this smoke shop with some more liquor stores set us back.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So my question is, why do we have to table it, or can we take a
No.
vote?
I think you have two options. And Sarah, because you weren't here last month, the applicant didn't appear last month. Ms. Rodriguez presented it, but the board stated that they wanted to hear from the applicant about the business operations that she wasn't, comfortable testifying to because, she just didn't know. So the applicant was directed to appear here this evening, and he's not here, clearly. He or she's not here. So I think you have two options. You can table indefinitely, which means the application gets put on a shelf, and if the person ever does reappear, the application gets dusted off, put back on your agenda, the neighborhood gets re-noticed, and you hear the
It's a
application.
do-over. Yeah.
The other option is you can dismiss the application for the applicant's failure to appear when requested, and then the application would be dismissed. The net effect, the net difference between those two things is if you dismiss it, if the applicant wants to revisit it, you would have to reapply with a new application, pay a new application fee. If you table it, he wouldn't have to reapply or pay a new application fee. They could just dust off the prior application. Those are the fundamental differences between your two actions.
Okay, then do you want a motion?
Well, we had some other public comment.
Okay.
So thank you. And keeping in mind that we are not going to take any other action other than the ones that were described.
I know that. I
And
just wanted,
Please just keep it brief.
I will. I just want to say, no, I'm going to be on for hours. I just want to say thank you for looking at this, because a lot of people in the community, as Frank said, they do not need another smoke shop. And I didn't get a chance to send the picture yet, but there is work being done over there and there's no work permit. There's siding going on and I've got the pictures and I can show you, there was wood laying outside, but on the inside, you can see everything is like ripped apart and all sorts of wood structures are sitting there. So that needs to be addressed as well. And I would appreciate if you would consider dismissing this altogether because he's not here and so forth. And I know the actions you're going to take. So I do appreciate it and thank you very much.
And just to be consistent, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
You don't know me. I'm Kim Ash McPherson. I'm District 2 City Councilwoman, 355 6th Ave, North Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Yes, please. Come on.
Good afternoon, good evening, giving honor to the commission and board here. My name is Charles Burks. I'm the lead pastor at United Ordained Church, North Central, 3376 Avenue. I'm also a former Marine, Vietnam vet era, and I'm here to share my concerns about having a smoke shop in that area, and especially directly across from the church. We have young children already going to the corner store purchasing cigarettes. And I had one of my members speak to me regarding that, and I had to go over and confront the store worker, whoever he is, concerning that. and he apologized. The mother was very upset. That area, as Brother Maben said, and the Councilwoman McPherson stated, we don't need a smoke shop in there. We're already struggling in that community. Our young folks don't need to see more negative. They need to see something positive. And seeing their parents go into a smoke shop, we have one right up here on Hoosick Street. If you want to go buy a pack of cigarettes, go up to Hoosick Street. I can put $1 to a donut. You couldn't find a smoke shop in the neighborhood in Gilderland or Latham. But you bring or will allow a smoke shop in a community that is already struggling, single parents household. And what will our children do? Latch on to the negative. So I'm not going to stand here long and belabor you with my concerns. And as Councilwoman McPherson said, there is a lot of debris inside. The character of the people doing the work there. I asked when Jim, I said, this is going to be a smoke shop. I don't know. You're doing work on the building, you don't know what's going to be there. They've already have wiring to cover the windows. That's negative. That's negative. What are you anticipating? Thank you for my time, for your time.
Thank you. Were there any other members of the public who showed up to speak on this application tonight?
I recommend that you
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, I'd just like to share that I've had the most frequent conversation and dialogue with the applicant. I've reminded him before November's meeting and this meeting, as I normally do with all applicants, to show up, and he's told me verbally and in person that he would. So not that anyone's doubting that, but just want to let you know the applicant has been contacted and told all the necessary information to be here.
Thank you, Dash. Well, in light of the applicant's failure to show up or anyone authorized on his behalf to speak with respect to the business operations, I move that we dismiss this application.
Second, sorry, beat you to it.
Moving to a vote, Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin, Sarah Wenger.
Yes.
Roddy Yagan.
Yes.
I vote yes. The application is dismissed 5-0.
Thank you.
Public comment matters a lot.
Okay, moving on to our last old business item. This is PLPC 2021-61. This is a change of use for 44th Street, 403 Fulton Street. Do we have the applicant present?
Good evening. My first name is Nabil, last name Shawhati. Address PO Box 12125, Albany, New York, 12212. We also have Bob Nelson online that she did some work, put the application on our behalf. I was not present for the last meeting. I understand there was some questions regarding what the business will be. What we like it to be is a deli. Plus, I travel a lot around the States, and I have seen something that I think can work. Fresh juice, like really fresh, organic. I walked around the area during the summer, and I saw a lot of people walking around. I think we'll try that. It's going to cost us a lot of money. We took this place back in May, and as of today, you don't have to worry about a thing. Nothing has happened. The window's still open. There's no work, and we don't want to spend any money unless we are doing it the right way, getting the right permits, and also making sure you guys are with us, and also the neighbors are with us as well. So I'm here to answer any other questions that you may have had last time when I was not present.
Thank you. And did you want Ms. Nelson to speak, or do you just want to take questions from the commissioners?
She's shaking her head.
I think the questions are all on what the operation is. So
Yeah.
Right, I'm available for questions, but Nabila is the.
Thanks, Barb. So if I could comment and just draw some comparisons between this application and the previous application this evening. This application clearly shows the intended use, and it meets the code that we have. So a delicatessen, a deli requires that there be seating for at least 10 patrons, which is clearly shown at this establishment. This is not a convenience store. Too much of the area is taken up with tables and seating for it to be a convenience store. So it is absolutely a deli, a restaurant. You know, if gentleman saying he's going to sell juice, you know, that's kind of a complementary use. It's a food establishment for sure, which is allowed in the zone. And again, it wouldn't matter if there was a deli across the street. It's allowed, right?
This is just a picture of a store that a friend of ours is running in New York City, and we intend to duplicate it. And, you know, of course, keeping it clean and reasonable hours and all that. We have no intention of selling Lucy's or turning it into a smoking shop. No.
Would there be any sales that are things like cigarettes or any other type of product?
We don't know. We may have some snacks, you know,
Snacks,
like
that's
a
cool.
cooler.
Snacks is good, but I think the last time were under the impression that there would be.
It says tobacco on the site plan.
Tobacco.
Yeah,
It does say
So-
tobacco on the site plan.
that was the
It-
issue that you know, you're talking about food and now juice things. And then also the last time there was tobacco on there. So that it raised a red flag.
My hope is not to get involved in things that are harmful to
If you
children.
could clarify that, I don't know, Andy, how that works.
It could still be classified as a delicatessen and sell tobacco. It
He has
wouldn't,
just said he is not,
We do not intend.
and doesn't, how does he go about showing us he does not intend?
You could simply make it a stipulation of your approval.
Okay.
But, you know,
We wouldn't be able to because it's a permitted use.
Right.
We can't stipulate that he can sell tobacco as a permitted use.
And I believe he goes through state license for that, right?
correct, and also, I mean, the same argument applies to lottery. That I don't think you would have the ability to, absent some compelling reason to protect health, safety, and welfare, to restrict it to, you know, non-tobacco sales or non-lottery.
Less with this month.
Right, as long as they have a compelling interest in health, safety, and welfare.
Isn't that the ZBA's authority to do and not ours?
It might be. Yeah, that.
But I guess what I'm keying into here, he has just said he does not intend to do tobacco products.
That is
So if
correct.
there's some way that we can just say, okay, then we don't have a big problem because a deli is needed.
But be careful, because
that's why I'm asking.
all he's saying is, I do not intend to do tobacco. That's not a commitment one way or the other.
Right.
That's a
I
statement in
understand that, yeah.
time. I don't intend, as I'm standing at the podium.
Right.
That could change by the time he hits his car. It's just an intention.
Or let's say every other person that comes in is a smoker. I don't know about the neighbors, and they want to, you know, they want cigarettes. I'm not talking about cigars. I'm talking about just regular cigarettes, you know, in the pack. It's more
That's-
possibility.
It seems like the one thing that we do have authority over is how much of the floor space would be devoted, right? Because he couldn't.
Correct. It couldn't become a wholesale tobacco store.
Well, not even, I mean, we really have a problem here with this, with the neighbors. They want a deli, they are begging a deli. You could have a deli. We can't really restrict you.
I think it's going to come down to two things. If the business is doing well and customers are not demanding, not every other customer coming in saying, you know, I'm going next door to get a cigarette, you know, and we're financially, you know, if you want to put a contingency in there, we can revisit it if we were to apply for cigarettes.
Well, it wouldn't be before us.
Correct.
It wouldn't come before us again at that point, just
And they can buy them
procedurally, so you understand.
halfway up the block at the below a minimum place. It's not as
Yeah.
good end of the business. So, and I don't know how much more we can say on it, but
So, yeah, so,
I was trying to think of similar use. Laughing at me trying to think. The other establishment I can think of is Deli and Brew, right? As sort of like, it's a deli. It meets the minimum requirements of a deli, right? It has the seating, it has all of that other stuff. It's a really good deli. So but it also has convenience store type items there. Don't think they sell tobacco there, but they obviously sell beer and alcohol.
And they presumably could if they wanted to. apply
And they
for it.
probably could if they wanted to. I also don't know if they do lottery, but again, I don't think either of those, if an establishment like that were to be selling tobacco and doing lottery, don't think it inherently changes. It's a deli.
I can
But-
say for the record, for sure, we will not be selling lotteries or beer.
That's progress.
We will not. We will fold and leave.
Okay, well, I thank you for showing up to answer questions. We're gonna see if there's any public members of the public who want to comment. Thank you. Did any members of the public want to comment on this application?
Hello, everybody. My name is James Kehoe. I reside at 42 4th Street, Troy, downtown, directly next door to the proposed premises for the delicatessen. My wife and I also own a bar in the building, or in the same building as the proposed delicatessen. Excuse me. And we are about to close on a property adjacent to the building on Fulton Street, which we have plans to develop into a farm to table, quick serve burger restaurant. Second location for something that's already established in Albany. So we're very invested in this quarter, and I came here last month to kind of just see if to kind of put the brakes on things and see if there's put a little bit more thought into what's going on. And so I'm really here for two reasons. Number one, to voice why I'm concerned about this particular business and type of business on this corner. And the other reason is to kind of maybe propose something constructive that might be something that's more in line with the city's plans for well, some other plans the city has. So primarily, I am aware of the other location that the gentleman owns, which is on Congress Street between 3rd and 4th. I've been through that area multiple times, and many people in Troy know it. It colloquially is the open air drug market. It is centered directly in front of this gentleman's existing location. I am aware that they have been known to sell loose cigarettes, which is so it's convenient that it was brought up. And that's something that I really don't think we want directly next door to our house. We see a lot of the problems that do happen there, and there's a lot of effort in various departments and then committees in the city to see what can be done to make that area better. And there are ways to solve that. I'm not going to, there are ways to address that that I'm not going to get into right now. But I don't think that it's right to expand that to other parts of the city. And what I mean to expand that is to create an environment that's conducive to that type of activity. By selling loose cigarettes, letting loitering occur, things of that nature. It just makes it worse. And so it's, I know it's not the purpose of the planning board to say you can't do it. It's an approved use. There's nothing in the current zoning laws that say you can't put a delicatessen. I saw that in 2016, classifications were added for delicatessen and convenience store as allowed uses in the city center district. So there's nothing wrong with that. Perhaps there should have been some restrictions in place when those new classifications were introduced on proximity, how many you could put into one area, potentially some other considerations. So that's one thing that could potentially be done to address maybe how to think more about why we need 3 convenience stores on the same corner. So it's part of it. And the other more, I guess, constructive angle was that I've read through some of the plans that Troy has in terms of what's the, sorry, wrote down the name of the proposal, the realized Troy plan. So just kind of look through some of the goals of what Troy has tried to do, particularly in city center, and bolstering economic development and activity is one of those goals. And other cities have done it by creating new districts and new zones with rules that kind of help curate the mix of businesses that go into those districts. They help fund transportation. marketing for those districts, road diets, signage, things of that nature. And they take the form of entertainment districts. So I kind of shot a napkin proposal to Mr. Strickland via email the other night before this planning meeting, just with some basic ideas. But I think that, you know, if the city of Troy really does want to figure out new ways to do things and to develop particular areas, an entertainment district could be a way to do it. So I'm not here to be obstructionist and then to say you can't do a permitted business in this permitted zone as it currently stands. I'm really just here because I know the planning board is here a lot of the reason to make recommendations to zoning and to kind of help take ideas like this and see how we can actually make it work within the city. So that's pretty much all I'm here to say. I don't expect necessarily any action to come out of this, but I at least wanted to kind of, you know, get the wheels turning and suggest that maybe, you know, the answer isn't placing restrictions on a particular business. It's really, let's see how we can zone to create business, which I think is a better use of city resources. That's all I have. Thank you.
I think he was referring to me as the person that's running the store in Congress Street. That is not me. I do not operate a store. That is a friend of mine who does have interest in this new venture. And the other thing you mentioned is another three convenience stores. I don't think this is going to be a convenience store. So that's it. I mean,
If I can just ask you one question, looking at the application, I didn't see mention of the proposed hours of operation. Did you have?
yes, I will. Actually, we were talking about that. That's open. We hope to start closing down in the winter, maybe by 8, 9 o'clock. In the summer, we would probably like to go into 10. And again, maybe during special events, we'd like to extend those hours. You know, if there's a car show, something, you know, if it's worth, if there's a need, and I'm not talking about our need, more of the customers. And then we can also revisit that after we open to extend or shorten the hours.
What time would you open?
Probably 9:30, 10 to get ready for lunch.
Are you ready for our questions?
Well, I was gonna wait and see if there was more
Okay.
public comment first. Were there any other members of the public who wanted to comment on the application? Anyone appearing via Zoom? Okay, the next one.
Anthony, my thought is I'd like to table this tonight. Everything I'm hearing, Andy pointed out before, is I'd like to, I plan to, there's really nothing specific here. And there are very serious concerns about what the tone of this deli is going to be, whether it's in fact a deli or whatever. And there was a lot of discussion last time when you were not here about the amount of space for retail or whatever it was going to be. So would it be possible for us to table it so that we have more specificity?
You guys do site plan review though. You don't review the inside of the establishment.
Well,
The use is a delicatessen.
If it isn't a deli,
That's code enforcement issue. That's not a planning commission issue. He's coming to you for a delicatessen. Your job is to review that application, approve or deny a delicatessen in this location. If he operates something other than a delicatessen, that's a code enforcement issue.
and then
Our
let's-
delicatessen,
then let's talk about
he
the
says that's what
ownership.
he's going to do, and he's got the 10 seats. That's it.
Okay, then let's talk about the ownership. I think we have your name. You've given.
You
us
have
your-
my name, yes.
And then your address was a post office box in.
I live
Albany.
in Schenectady. You want?
Yes, we.
I don't even think you should know my address in Schenectady.
We
I
always
mean,
do.
if you want, I'll send it to you in writing.
If he's an owner as an LLC, there's no reason to know where
And it is an
his
LLC?
personal residence is.
Is it an LLC?
I don't.
Just to clarify, I did mention this to Barbara. The applicant you had put down as the landlord or the LLC that owns the property, that's not us.
Okay, right.
But I'm sure in the application it's listed our contact, our phone number. I'm more than happy to send it to
We
you guys
need
right
both.
now.
We need to know who owns the property and who's
That-
operating
yes.
it. When we do.
We have a
that
lease,
information.
we have a lease, we,
Yes.
But I think
Let's
I would
look at
like
the
to have that
application.
for
Yeah.
for the record and for our approval. I guess right now I'm just looking at the staff report that has the property owner. I just feel like we don't have enough information. I understand your point,
I
Aaron,
think
that
it's
it's
very
just a
clear,
deli.
crystal clear that I'm presenting you with especially fresh juice. If we see that working in other states and other places, we want to give it a go.
And we have no problem with it. We have a couple others already and we don't see competition. That would be fine. I mean, we don't care about competition.
Well, Barb, if there's information that we don't have in order to make a decision, we can certainly ask the applicant for that information, but we need to be very clear about what information it is that we're lacking and what we need. I think to go to Aaron's point, we have a sketch of what the floor plan will look like, but we're not really reviewing the floor plan. We're just looking at a change of use at this point.
And that it does look like a deli.
Right.
Okay, and you're satisfied with the ownership? This owner and the other guy?
Yes,
You got those names?
yes.
Okay.
I could give you mine.
I don't
like,
need them. The city needs them.
I know that.
Were there any other commissioner comments?
So I think moving towards recommendations for your site plan. Are you present? You here? Sir? Sir?
Yes.
All right, right here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I see him making movement.
Yeah.
It's
I
With the
understood.
face mask.
These make everything difficult. No worries.
Yeah.
We ignore them too.
Understandable. No, I just wanted to try and offer some more recommendations akin to what James was offering. I think put some thought, if you would, into the exterior and what differentiates your establishment in that space, in that neighborhood, what makes it unique beyond just the deli, is I think why you're feeling a bit of resistance or extra scrutiny, if that's how it comes off, is that's in a very central part of the city. There are delis built into a lot of the corner markets and bodegas there, so that there's a question of what, and again, I understand it's a permitted use, but trying to give you advice on what things you can do or add, or how you can better your site plan to better serve this city. It's just in looking for ways that make it a more unique establishment, more diverse, or what features you're going to offer. Maybe, is there any plan maybe for curb service or window service for sales, something, feature function wise that you would maybe think about building into your site plan, where on the site plan then it would show a window counter, or it's those kind of thoughts. I'm just giving you a flavor of things to consider. I think that's kind of capturing what James is getting at, is what characterizes this differently than a bodega or another corner store. It says deli on the plans. It meets the seating requirements and the criteria, but what is it that makes it diverse or different, or something that is above and beyond? And again, those wouldn't be something that we'd be able to say, no, if you don't have those, we can't approve it. It's just recommendations for you to add.
I do think.
I know that's a
that-
nebulous comment.
I do think that the fresh juice, I mean, I have kids, we travel, we visit friends, and they have a spot where their friends would say, let's go get juice from this place. Someday we want to be distinguished, where somebody's gonna say, look, there's fresh juice, organic juice, unique juice in this place, let's go there. That's our thinking behind this, that we want to stand out from the rest of the delis by showing you the picture. This venture is going to cost anywhere between $45,000 to $60,000. Okay, and we're not going to drop $40,000 to $60,000 to San Luis. Okay, so hopefully the outlook of and the inside is going to be, clean, basically renovated, and again, I think the fresh juice is gonna what make it stand out from the others.
Just as a bit of anecdotal information, there's Collar City Cold Press in the area. There's also Whole Foods or Health Foods, just letting you know.
We welcome it. We welcome the juice. We welcome the deli.
Again, it's worth mentioning, even if this was a convenience store and he was saying, no, that's exactly what it is. I'm only selling tobacco and alcohol, nothing else. You can't even buy a bag of potato chips. Just cigarettes and booze. It's an allowed use. It's a delicatessen. It's allowed use. He has no site plan changes. He's making no modifications. to the building.
I feel that we're asking him to jump through hoops that we haven't asked anyone else to jump through. For example, last month we had a similar application for the place on King Street, and she sailed right through. I don't see why we're asking him to, give us the floor plan for the Taj Mahal before we approve it. It's kind of, it's actually making me angry. So, I think we should just vote on it or something.
I think the only problem is it mentioned cigarettes last time in a deli, and it was like a, like this or that kind of thing. So I think we've settled that. It's not
But-
something we can even regulate.
They
So
have
it's the
mentioned
end.
many times, there's nothing that stops us from selling.
I can't hear.
There's nothing that stops us from selling.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, we are the ones saying we're not going to do that.
Thank you.
We have no intention.
The reason it's of concern to us isn't whether it's a permitted use or not. It affects what recommendations we could make. If that was what you wanted to do with the business, it changes what recommendations we might make. You
I
understand
think
that?
if I was doing that, I would not be in that. business. It will be somewhere else where there's demand for it. Thank you. Yes.
Suzanne, I tend to agree with you. I think we do have the information that we need to go to a vote.
I also
The only
agree.
question I would have is whether or not any of the commissioners feel that we need to ask or put any sort of restrictions on the operating hours as a condition of if we are going
He
to
said,
approve.
yes, he gave us like 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Do you want to tell us what your hours would be?
So again, in the summer, we would like to shoot until 10. And maybe in the winter, 8 o'clock.
Okay, take out the maybe.
Just for the sake of clarity, I would suggest you just state
In the
a set of
application.
hours that's 7 days a week, all year round. So if you want to be open from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., you can operate less hours. You can't operate outside that range.
We will go with 8 to 10.
The application says renovations to existing storefront. So are there exterior renovations?
We would like to probably bring it to match the rest of the building. If it needs to be done, I'm not sure.
And I know that it's frustrating, but these are things that affect our recommendations, right? I mean, if we didn't levy the same things, then that was a failure of us on that other application. But that said, it's still a question. I do think I'm comfortable enough with this particular one, but just procedurally, these are questions that matter.
I have no problem with asking questions. It's just.
Nothing I said was levied as a requirement.
I think to your point,
Clarify.
Roddy, if any of the renovations would trigger a site plan, then that would have to come in front of us for site plan review separately, but we could approve the change of use tonight or deny it, whatever the case might be.
If
But
that's all this is.
that is all that's currently in front of us is the change of use
I'm good.
With the hours.
with the
As-
hours,
as
right?
agreed.
So with that said, do we have a motion?
I move that with the recommendations that the commission gives, the set hours, anything else?
I think that's it.
That we approve this application.
And that if there are facade renovations, we would have, I guess that's just how it would go anyway. So we don't need it as a condition.
Right.
So when facade renovations are prepared and you have drawings to share, just share that with me directly, and that'll be reviewed by the Historic Review Commission because you are in the historic district. But if those renovations don't create any site plan changes, then that wouldn't need to come to this board, just the Historic Review Commission.
The one thing I see that we will do, we will update the doors, replace the doors, because the other day I actually pushed in and went in.
Great.
Not good.
If you're looking for any historic recommendations or advice on materials, the Historic Review Commission is always willing to offer advice. So you can contact me directly for any of that.
Okay, so we had a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, going to a vote. Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Sarah Wengert,
Yes.
Roddy Yagan,
Yes.
Anthony Moan, I vote yes. So the motion carries 5-0. Approving the change of use with the stipulation that it's for the hours stated tonight, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Thank you.
Great,
And
thank
good-
you.
and good night.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have 2 items.
Did we pull something from the agenda?
We moved the one consent.
Oh,
No.
well, we just did that ahead of all the others. So we already dealt with that on the consent agenda. Are you looking at something else?
No, I can't reach out, sorry.
Okay. So this is PLPC 2021-65, number 9 within 3 to 11 Monroe Street. Do we have the applicant?
Barb
Oh,
is on the
right,
line.
Barb
Yeah.
on.
As well as Tyler Fain. So whenever either of you are ready to present, feel free to unmute yourself.
Barb, if you just want to start.
Sure, I'm glad to. Let me pull up my image here so I can refer to it.
Sorry.
There we go. Go ahead.
I have a procedural question. I apologize. I was under the impression that the applicant had to be present
He's here.
in the room. Am I incorrect?
With hybrid meetings, I believe the applicant can be present on Zoom, just the same.
According to the emergency regulations promulgated by the governor and Department of Health related to the open meetings law, where they have to be run as a hybrid entity, an applicant can appear via Zoom.
Thank
Again,
you.
that's a temporary situation we're in during the pandemic, but they can appear via Zoom.
And prior to that, you were right.
Okay, thank you.
Can Barb start up again?
Yep, she's unmuted.
Sure. Hi. Good evening. My name is Barb Nelson. I'm an architect here at TAP, and we have assisted the applicant here, Tyler Fain from CD Perry, to prepare a site plan showing the construction of a prefab metal storage building. I'll let Tyler tell you more about his business, but what we've shown here is a building very much in keeping with the existing buildings that are there. They are prefab. Well, there's one historic building on the CD Perry campus there. That's the brick building closest to the fence line. It's actually labeled metal framed commercial, and that is wrongly labeled. It should be labeled a masonry commercial building. This new building will house materials and equipment that are currently arranged on the site so that the company can keep, can better store equipment and materials. It will not house everything that is loose on the site, but it is a first step, an attempt to kind of organize and protect much of the equipment that is there. Tyler, I'll let you talk about the kind of the business and your intent for using the building.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Barb. How's it going? I'm Tyler Fain. I'm the general manager of CD Perry and Troy Slag. So I represent the owners of the business. And so we've actually been located at Monroe Street, at the foot of Monroe Street since 1936. We're a heavy civil contractor and marine contractor. We do work on the Erie Canal, the Champlain Canal, Hudson River. We do a lot of transmission line and energy work. We're currently working on a few green energy projects. So this actual building is to match the two of the existing buildings that are on site. As you could tell from the application, it's 150 foot by 80 foot building. I believe it's 25 foot in height. So essentially this building will really just house weather sensitive materials, vehicles and equipment, essentially to get a lot of this stuff inside rather than just exposed to the elements. There, at one point in time, there was a building that was existing on the pad, slightly smaller than the building that we're proposing, and that's essentially it. Barb did a real nice job laying everything else out, and yeah, that's really what we're going for.
Thanks, Tyler. I'll just add that this is, it's one of the last businesses that really is a working waterfront business, and it's important to acknowledge the power, the economic impact of this business. Tyler and his company just finished our seawall construction, so I'm happy to see it advancing and growing as a company.
Thank you.
Questions?
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Are there any members of the public who came to speak about this application?
I could also just mention it meets all the setbacks, it meets all the height requirements. And the traffic layout around it allows for the maneuvering. It might seem sort of out in the field there, but it is set up so that large tractor trailers and the heavy construction equipment that C.D. Perry operates can safely navigate around it.
Thank you.
I guess I have just one quick question. Are the hours really 9 to 5? Seems kind of crazy. Should put in.
So,
No.
Barb, I didn't know if you want to take that one or if you want me to just speak on that.
It's probably a typo on our part. I'm sure you're working 24/7.
I know.
We're working quite a bit, yeah. I can't commit to 9 to 5.
No, I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking to clarify.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's just
My bad.
We can make it clear if we take any action on the application. That's a typo.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do they want hours of operation? I don't know how to handle it. That's crazy.
Sure.
It's just a common question on the form. I should note on the site plan, we also note that there is an easement agreement with the city of Troy for the someday development of riverfront, public riverfront access. We're not certain by survey, exactly how wide that is, but acknowledging that it exists and that it is that is preserved for the city's use.
That would really interact with the proposal, right? It looks like that's all along the waterfront. The easement?
Is the question whether this company accesses the water from this?
I was just saying the
Site?
site plan, it appears on the site plan, but as far as I see, it doesn't interact at all with.
I'm not sure she can hear you.
Oh,
I can't hear you.
sorry about that. It appears on the site plan, but it doesn't look like it interacts at all with what you're proposing, right? It's.
Oh, the waterfront?
Yeah.
I think you
Now,
mean
Tyler, you could explain. You have another access point to the river. further north.
So I think what the reference is, so that easement through the waterfront, that's about 200 feet away from where the proposed building is going to sit.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I was asking.
I have a question for the board. My only thought about something that would be potentially relevant on this kind of a proposal would be, I think in my mind, industrial buildings and what happens in 50 years with these buildings? Do they get dilapidated? Does this board ever stipulate requirements about like appearance maintenance or like, maintaining painting, period or anything like that? Code enforcement. Thank you. That's all. Just a question.
Roddy, if this was in a, anybody in a historic district, yes, you get to choose colors and mandate all kinds of things, but outside of historic district, it's code enforcement in terms of appearance.
I have no other comments or issues with the proposal.
Okay, so this is an unlisted action, so we need to make a secret determination, and then we can discuss whether or not we have enough information to approve the site plan.
If you're comfortable, I'll make a motion. I move that we make a negative declaration for seeker determination.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, Barbara Higbee,
Aye.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Sarah Wenger,
Yes.
Roddy Yagan,
Yes.
Anthony Moen, I vote yes. So we make a negative declaration. And do we need to separately, I think we're the only involved agency. Do we need to separately declare that we're lead agency, or the one motion satisfies? Okay. And do we feel like we have enough information to approve the site plan tonight? Okay, then
I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan as proposed.
Second.
Can I just ask my question again? Do we require hours of operation?
I'm not sure if it's necessary in this instance for this use. I would treat it like a typo.
So take it out then.
Yeah,
correct.
It's just not right, so take it out.
Correct. So just assume it was omitted.
Okay, thank you.
we're approving the site plan application with the understanding that the 9 to 5 hours
Yeah,
like,
just
are not
making sure it's not-
or incorrect.
Fine.
Okay, going to a vote. Barbara Higbee,
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Sarah Wengert,
Yes.
Roddy Yagan,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The site plan is approved 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you very much, Barb.
All right, last item. PLPC 2021-69. This is 97 Fifth Avenue.
And Chair, I will recuse myself.
Okay, good night and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, sir.
Mr. Wengert. See you in the new year. if not before.
We're good?
Yes.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Drury with Chase and Companies. I am the applicant's representative. The applicant is Unity House. They are proposing a project at 97 Fifth Avenue at the intersection of Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue and River Street, and there's a side street that I don't remember. I'm not great with streets. There is an existing building that they are proposing to renovate, rehabilitate, and turn into administrative offices. The current building use is classified, I believe, as professional offices. There was a medical center in there at one point, as well as a daycare. The building is currently vacant, so they would like to convert it to administrative offices. They've previously received a zoning variance to allow for up to 50 employees. The zoning district only allows for 10 employees. They've already been granted that variance. From a site plan perspective, can't get much easier than this. We are milling and paving the parking lot. We are going to restripe it. They are actually providing more than double what is required in terms of parking spaces. They have adequate parking as well for a shared parking lot with Family Dollar. They are providing more handicap spaces, and they will be spread out amongst the 3 parking lot areas as compared to now where they are all right in front of the building. And then in addition to milling and paving the parking lot from a site perspective, they will be adding a half basketball court. At this time, it may shrink, it may grow, but there will be a basketball court, as well as a small playground and community raised planter boxes as well. Those facilities will be open to the public after hours, so that the neighborhood can come and use these as well.
Thank you.
Can you just talk about signage?
Do you want to, sorry. Nadine, do you want to weigh in on the signage that you guys are going to use? Yes.
On the building as well as the court and parking lot?
The only site signage we're gonna have is there are existing signs in the rear two parking lots that limit that those parking lots can be used for the building usage. You can't just go park in there instead of parking on the street if you're part of the public. And then the front parking lot, we're actually adding stop bars and stop signs so that no one just juts out onto River Street as well as the side street. And in terms of site perspective, that's all the signs we're adding.
We're obviously adding signage on the building, Unity House with our logo on both sides, Fifth Ave and 102nd.
And I'm just not super familiar with the streets there. Is it going to be easily visible from the street? Can you see it located easily? I just want to make sure that.
It's not really public.
So Fifth Avenue is this side.
It's an office.
Yeah. I'm assuming this is where people that want to become tenants or this is where they'd go or no?
No. It's
No,
just
not
office.
in, I don't mean tenants in this building. I mean, other people that want to find
find
housing through Unity House. Is
Or
this
find
the
us.
administrative office they go to speak
This is
about
the
it?
administrative offices. There is a
Right.
parking lot on both sides.
Yeah.
But the signage will be large enough, so just driving by, you'll see it.
Okay. That's really what I'm after is just
Oh.
make it visible.
We want everybody to see ours.
Well, as someone who lives in North Central, I'm glad to see this building being repurposed, so.
We're very excited to come into the area.
It's just your people here.
Yeah,
So there's no one else
there
to
would be
speak.
enough.
I don't have any other questions.
Is there anybody on Zoom who wanted to comment on this application?
I would not believe so, based on the names I see.
Yeah.
As part of the site plan revisions, is there any sidewalk work that's being proposed on 102nd Street?
Currently, no. 102nd Street is, I gotta find it again, is the Family Dollar and it's easier to point, sorry. The Family Dollar's here, River Street, 102nd.
Right where
Street.
you just moved your
Just
finger.
that sidewalk
Yeah.
currently asphalt.
Yes.
We're not proposing to touch, change, do anything. with
Could
that
you?
sidewalk.
Could you?
That would
Just
be
that
down to
section.
project funding.
Yes. Understood.
Yeah.
The-
We always,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we always like to see pedestrian improvements where possible.
Yes, so CDTA just, install obviously, so you installed a new bus stop there. They stopped the sidewalk somewhere around our hydrant at the corner, the southeast corner of 102nd River. If you guys could just continue that sidewalk to the building, just through your two curb cuts, right? And also if there's any opportunity to better define those curb cuts. I'm not sure what's out there now in terms of curbing and what have you, but just to, well, right. So if there's an opportunity to, yeah, an opportunity to better define those.
Way I would suggest normally defining it means provide a review on the curb.
Yeah, there's no curb.
There's no curb already.
So it would be curb and sidewalk to the building.
Well, I was going to say, if you're doing sidewalk, wouldn't you just do monolithic curb with it?
You could.
I'm not sure how far the
That's concrete
sidewalk
curb
sits
in
off.
that area, so we wouldn't ask that you replace concrete with granite. So if you guys would be willing to do I would say a 5-foot sidewalk along that section. And then, with clearly defined driveway apron, concrete driveway aprons in and out of it, that I think that would dress that area up nicely. And seeing as you're milling and filling quite a bit of pavement, I think that little extra bit is gonna make it look great. And then when we pave 102nd and River in that area, it'll look really good.
And just, on the rear 2 parking lots, I did add a note that brought up on previous meetings, that sidewalk has to be repaired if it's damaged during construction.
Yes.
I believe that's also asphalt, so that note is on.
Correct, and if the asphalt is disturbed, it would have to be replaced with concrete. We don't do asphalt sidewalks, so yep.
Is there any landscaping plan involved? Sorry, I'm just not seeing it jumping out.
Sorry, not the microphone. The only landscaping proposed is the 2 trees in the parking lot. There are 2 existing, I believe,
I missed that.
in the parking lot right now, because of how we're reshaping the parking lot. Those trees right now are integrating the parking lot with their roots, so we're actually going to extend the side of the islands to give them a little bit more room to grow as we plant new ones. The remainder of the trees around the site are very mature and we don't want to see them go. So again, we're just making those islands bigger, giving those roots a little bit more room before they get to the parking lot, and we're going to preserve as many of those trees as we can.
And are you good on like snow storage and?
I have no concerns with this proposal. It was an existing structure. It's an existing site. It was managed just fine up until it was vacant. And I'm sure it'll be managed just fine as when you were the applicant. So.
Any other commissioner comments? Okay, so we have both a secret determination to make, and then if we have enough information, we can also
Great.
make a vote on site plan approval.
I move a negative check on the unlisted action.
I will,
All right, going to a vote. Barbara Higbee.
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin.
Yes.
Roddy Yagan.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's a negative declaration for seeker purposes, and
I make a motion that we approve the site plan.
Can I suggest that you include a condition that there would be submission of a sidewalk plan to be approved by the city engineer?
What he said.
For 102nd Street.
Yes.
Or general.
Yeah, not for, I understand there's 2 parking lots
Yeah.
behind the building.
Just,
I think that's a little too much to take on with this project,
Yeah.
but just that section of 102nd.
yeah.
okay, so a sidewalk plan that covers that segment of 102nd Street. Do we have a second for that motion?
Yeah, I will second it.
Okay. And going to a vote, Barbara Higbee.
Yes.
Suzanne Spellin.
Yes.
Roddy Yagan.
Yes.
And I vote yes. The site plan is approved with that condition, 4-0. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. All we need to do is a motion to adjourn. I move, we adjourn.
Hold on, what about the yes folk one?
That was part of
No,
consent.
it's part of the consent.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just didn't remember talking
I
about it.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.